You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to our Sabres Semantics live trade deadline reaction right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. And to recap the Buffalo Sabres movement at the NHL Trade Deadline. Thank you, everybody that's tuned in live here on our YouTube channel. As always, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat as well with your thoughts on the Sabres deadline. You can also give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. If you're listening to us the next day on your favorite on-demand audio podcast platform, thank you very much for doing so as well. Going to be welcoming on a guest as well to help me break down this one on a day that a lot of us thought there would be a more movement, unfortunately, for those trade deadline junkies out there. Not a whole lot. I know there's some that have trickled in later in the day after the deadline had come and gone, but we'll have to wait and see what the official number is. But it was way less for trade deadline day than it had been in previous years with so many deals that we've seen in previous trade deadlines. This one was at about 10 right up until the deadline itself. And then we had obviously some come in the queue and things like that. But the Sabres did make a late trade after the deadline had passed, but their big meal, I guess you can say, big deal came late last night in the overnight. Maybe some people were in bed already and can't really blame you. It's a work night for a lot of people. So if you're already in bed, you missed it. But we had the massive deal with the Winnipeg Jets of, as I'll pull it up on the screen for you guys here. Got some visuals for you here. It was the Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn deal that involved Isak Rosén and a second-round pick going back to the Winnipeg Jets. I'm trying to pull up the trade here. Got everything here for you guys. Just have to find it here. And where is this trade? I had it somewhere, and I can't find it now. But there we go. Trade with Winnipeg. There you go, Brandon. You figured it out. So, as I mentioned, with this type of deal, when you look at it, I know that people are gonna. I'm interested to get my guest's thought on this as well. But when you look at what the Sabres were looking for, we know what happened with that Colton Parayko deal that was nixed by Parayko himself with that no trade clause. He has every right to do that. That within his contractual obligation. Took a little bit there and decided that Buffalo was not going to be the destination for him. I think the Sabres and Jarmo Kekalainen said, you know what, we need to go out and still acquire a defenseman, and that they did. They ended up getting a pair in Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn from the Winnipeg Jets for, as I mentioned, Isak Rosén, a 2027 7th-round pick, a 2026 4th-round pick, and depth defenseman Jacob Bryson on the Sabres side of things. And again, other than Bryson, they don't move a player off the roster. And I think that was very important for the Sabres team right now that's playing so well. The best win percentage in the National Hockey League since December 9th, 5 straight wins, tied with Tampa Bay for first spot in the Atlantic Division. I know Tampa Bay does have some games in hand on Buffalo, but with the way that this team has been playing as of late and putting themselves in this spot, you really couldn't imagine them trading a lot of guys off the roster. That rumored trade for Parayko was going to involve Radim Murka, who at this time is not currently on the roster. So They really didn't want to mess with that team cohesion. I think the Alex Tuck rumors that have been going around, I think we pretty much put that to bed with, needing a guy like him to be on the team for this playoff run is essentially their inner team rental, I guess you could say, not going out and getting one. So this sort of trade, we knew something was coming for Jarmo Kekalainen after left at the altar by Colton Parayko in certain ways. We're going to hear a little bit of his comments as well later on today on this episode before I wrap things up. But I'm waiting our guest here to join us. But Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn, two depth guys. I think Logan Stanley obviously is the bigger name in this trade. When you look at what he brings to the table, going to pull up his stats here. I know, he's not necessarily the flashiest guy. I've already seen stuff on Twitter or X about his highlight reels of his hits and fights and things like that. And again, a guy that has never put up more than 21 points in his career, but that's not, the type of game that the Sabres want to get out of Logan Stanley. They want solid defensive play, left shot, 27 years old, 6'7", former first-round pick of the Winnipeg Jets back in 2016. Played a couple of years with the Manitoba Moose after he was done in the OHL with the Windsor Spitfires and the Kitchener Rangers. So he's a guy that I think Buffalo had targeted, when they didn't get Parayko, 6'6", they go after 6'7" Logan Stanley and bring him into the lineup. A guy that's played in some playoff games as well with Winnipeg. And again, his stats are not going to jump off at the page to you, but he's a type of player that they want for that bottom pair when you pair it with what they've got right now. So, when you look at I know people want to look at the in-depth analytics here, and when you look at Stanley's analytics, I'm going to pull this up here for JFresh. Again, his WAR is 11%, but some good defensive play there for Logan Stanley, and a guy that I think the Sabres will be happy to add in the lineup. Again, does he have some deficiencies? Of course. But for a team like the Sabres, I think getting a guy like Logan Stanley was important for those offensive defensemen that they have to be able to shore that up. And again, with Michael Kesselring, and his he's still trying to come back 100% as well. I think this shows that Jarmo Kekalainen wanted some depth with a lot of games left to play in a short amount of time in case injuries do happen. They add another guy, to that bottom six, an upgrade, obviously, over a guy like a Jacob Bryson. And I know Connor Timmins is supposed to be working his way back to the lineup as well at some point. But I think Logan Stanley was if they didn't get a Colton Parayko, it was the Logan Stanleys, it was the Tyler Myers, it was the Rasmus Ristolainens of the world that player that Jarmo Kekalainen was looking at to try to add in. And I'm going to welcome on our guest right now, who looks to be on site somewhere. We've got Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report. Joe, where are you at right now?
I'm in the atrium of KeyBank Center here in Buffalo. It's just trying to get things set up here, man. It's a little been a little crazy today, but yeah.
I was gonna say, how has your day been going? Because everybody talks about the players and everything, but the media, you guys had a full day of practice there down at the rink. How has the day been on the media side?
Long, mostly because I got back from Pittsburgh about 4 a.m. Today after last night's game against the Penguins. So it was a fun day of sleeping through an alarm, coming down, being in time for the locker room availability with the players, because it was a short skate, about 15 minutes today. Basically, like getting a morning skate for tomorrow's game out of the way a day early, and getting to talk with a little bit with Darlene, and Samuelson spoke as well, and just kind of waiting it out, waiting to see what deals happen, what other deals happen, and then talking with Jarmo Kekalainen and finding out what the thought process was behind the moves the team made.
Yeah, I was just kind of discussing it before you got on, talking about that Logan Stanley deal, and I'm going to play a little bit of Jarmo's presser later in the episode today. But when he talked about, wanting to add some defensive, reliability back there, he talked about having a lot of top-end offensive defensemen in the lineup and things like that. And when the Parayko deal really fell through, it seemed like, targeting a guy like Logan Stanley, we heard the names of the Tyler Myers and the Rasmus Ristolainen maybe being a reunion in Buffalo, but they choose to go in the Logan Stanley route, maybe a little bit younger, 6'7" guy. We see the reels on Twitter already of his hits and his fights and things like that. But What do you think that he's going to bring, to this team that they didn't have already?
Well, I think he's going to add an ability for them to kind of balance things out with their lineup because they were rolling Zach Metza and Michael Kesselring on that third pair. Granted, it's a third pair that didn't really play together all that often because Lindy was kind of spacing them out, using them with different guys, sending, Metza was playing a little bit with Dahlin here and there, sometimes with Power, sometimes Byram, Samuelson, because it's a defensive core that is a little bit lopsided in handedness, but Stanley doesn't exactly help that, given he's another lefty shot, but provides size. Jarmo says he loves that he's a guy that can clear the net. I think Lindy Ruff even said that too. Lindy cannot wait to get Logan Stanley here and in a uniform because the size is alluring, the physicality is a big deal. The fact that he will not shy away from punching somebody's lights out is probably also like a bonus for that. But he's having a great year. And I know a lot of the metrics don't really sing, and they don't, a lot of fans are getting them preemptively nervous about that. But he's having an outstanding season compared to what he's done in the past. And his glow up from folks in Winnipeg that I talked to today sounds like it's very similar to that of like Matthias Samuelsson. Now, mind you, Samuelson's having a legitimately great season, but I think Stanley, it's been some time. He's needed some time to kind of improve and to get to a place where it's like, okay, we can play this guy every night and he's going to provide a solid game. So I think for what he's going to do and the role that he's going to provide, he's going to be kind of maybe not a deterrent, but more an attraction for players on other teams that want to start some stuff, and he'll be there ready to engage it.
I don't really want to discuss too much on it, Joe, but I did put a poll up for this and the Parayko situation and everything like that. I'm more so upset just the fact that the trades get leaked out before a player has even, been it's approached for something like this. I think that whole system needs to change. I don't think things need to be leaked out because I think it puts the players and the teams and the players involved in a really tough position. Just how do you think that, missing out on that situation and how that ended, it made Jarmo Kekalainen a little bit more motivated to make sure that he did go out, just sort of regroup, wash his face and go out there and make this late night deal with the Jets?
Yeah, Jarmo made it a point to say that any deals that, are talked about or weren't completed, like stuff that didn't happen, he doesn't want to talk about it. So, no, we're not going to get that side of the story. I know Doug Armstrong was saying that he was checking phones and texts of everybody on the staff to find out if somebody leaked out the Parayko or even the Thomas talk, maybe even. But in Jarmo's case, this is, this is a thing that, this stuff happens often enough where I don't think it's something to worry about. It's just a thing that happens sometimes, and maybe it's a pressure point provided, players, agents, GMs, like something like that, where somebody tells somebody, and I know a lot of people were dunking on Drager for leaking that out, but like he had that story dead to nuts. Like he had it down. Like the whole trade was right there in the writing. So it was just a matter of getting a guy to say yes to the move. But that stuff doesn't bother me so much. I can see it being an issue for the player, obviously, because GMs make the choices, but like when it's up to the player to say yes or no, one side is going to take offense to it one way or the other. Either it's the team he was playing for and says, yeah, get me out of here, or the team he says, no, I'm happy where I am. And they're like, well, we wanted you, like, let's go. But I think, honestly, in this situation, I can't imagine too many Buffalo fans are going to be hyper annoyed or ticked off that when St. Louis comes here next season, provided Parayko is still on St. Louis next season, who knows what the offseason might bring, but when he comes back next year, the fans are going to be booing him. Like when he touches the puck, I'm like, guy had 0 minutes played for Buffalo Sabres. There's other fish to fry when it comes to that kind of thing. I mean, Jack Eichel comes back here once a year, and it's enough booing for one guy for everybody. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for the players, but I mean, it's kind of part of the business. Like it or not, these players are public figures, and I know sometimes these details are supposed to be kind of quiet, but I mean, all you gotta do is bring up one of the contract websites, and you see a guy's got a full no trade. So his name's out there. It's for somebody's reasons, one way or another.
for sure. And the other side of that is, Luke Shen. We've seen him in the league for a long time, a journeyman. I think he's almost reaching Mike Sillinger territory. I think he's 2 or 3 teams away for tying Sillinger for the most teams played for in the National Hockey League. Played for the Leafs for a long time. The Sabres fans know him well. Is that just sort of like a depth add for a scratch defenseman in case sort of things happen, and just a veteran guy in the room that can, bring a lot of experience to a team that's looking to, make strides in the playoffs here?
Yeah, it's all of those things. Definitely a depth guy. I can't see him supplanting somebody in the top 6. I mean, I know Michael Kesselring's been, sort of like finding his game and finding his way through it, but he's played better the last few games, and I can't imagine Luke Schen's going to take that job away from him. But you never know with Lindy with veterans, like things could get weird. But I really think Luke Schen's there to kind of be sort of like the Jedi master for everybody, to kind of help provide some leadership, some guidance for when it comes to playoff time. Because I'm trying to think right now, the only guy with experience in the playoffs in there is Bo Byram, and that's he was really young in that Colorado team, and like, listen, winning a cup's winning a cup, like that counts, but he's still young, and he doesn't have like those years put in the way Luke Schenn does, and I think that's important for the room. And from what I understand, he's a guy that's been like beloved everywhere he goes, so that's a great way to kind of keep the good vibes going in the room, to have a guy like that, especially a veteran guy that's been there, he's done that, he's been almost everywhere at this point. So no issues with adding him. If he's in your top 4, you're maybe things aren't going to get so great, are going to get a little tougher. But yeah, as a number 7, I got no issues there.
Yeah, and going the other way, Joe, and I know you were on the Winnipeg show earlier today. And we talked about Isak Rosén a lot, even going back to development camp earlier this year, and what he sort of would be bringing to this team. And when we looked at it, we said, could this possibly be a situation where Rosén, where they look to get him a change of scenery here, because he's down in Rochester again, playing another full season. He's sort of been passed on the depth chart by some of those players that were taken after him, a former first-round pick in 2021 by the team. So I guess, is this sort of just a move where the Sabres had so many prospects and so many guys available, they didn't want to take anybody off the current roster with how well they've been playing, and to give Rosén an opportunity here with the Jets team, possibly down the road as maybe a middle 6 forward?
Yeah, I feel terrible for Isak, because he's really put in the work, and he's put in the time. Because the thing back a few years ago, so when he arrived at Rochester, and he was not a strong guy. He's not a big size guy, but the worry with him was that he was going to get knocked around pretty hard in the AHL, because the AHL is a hard league. And he played in the playoffs with Rochester, and they opened up against Syracuse, and boy, Syracuse, veteran team, lots of heavy hitters, lots of guys that just really grind it up. Think of like all the depth guys you've seen with the Lightning the last couple of years, guys like that. And they were licking their chops to get at Rosén, because he small guy, and they're like, boy, we're going to light this guy up. We're going to paint the boards with him. And he took every hit, and he bounced right off it, right through it, and kept going and kept playing. And he played his tail off, man. The work that he's done to be as good as he is in the AHL tells me that he's an NHL level player. It just wasn't going to end up being here. You think back to every time he was called up, he was played maybe in the 4th line, at highest the 3rd line. And for a guy with his skill set and his ability and what he does, and even his size to a degree, you're not playing it. You don't want to play him on those lines. You don't want to have him in a defensive role, even though he's not bad defensively. That's not getting the most out of him. And he wasn't going to supplant a Jack Quinn. He wasn't going to supplant Josh Doan or Alex Tuck on the right side. Even on the left side, with Krebs being such a utility knife guy that Lindy loves playing, Zach Benson, Jason Zucker, guys like that, he just wasn't going to crack through unless he was scoring 45, 50 goals a year in the AHL. Like, that was maybe the only way he was going to do it. He's played great in Rochester, but it's time for him to be an NHL player, and it just wasn't going to happen here. And at that point, I think Buffalo, it was up to them to figure out, okay, where can we send him to get to so that he can be of use to another team, but also we can get somebody that's going to help us out down the road, because the longer he stayed in the A here, the more miserable he was going to be, A. And B, the less you're going to get when it's time to move him anyways, because people are going to be like, well, maybe this guy's just an AHL player only. And I don't think he's that. He's going to get a chance in Winnipeg, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does there, because I think he is a good player. I think he can be good in the NHL. It was just the road here got a lot harder when they were adding more guys, and when other draft picks, other guys that were higher, maybe not higher picks, but other guys that were first-round picks took quicker steps to get to the NHL, beat him to it.
Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report's with us. Joe, when we look at the overall price then of that deal, Stanley and Luke Schenn in exchange for Isak Rosén, who's technically a first-round prospect, a second-round pick, and Jacob Bryson. What is your thoughts on that trade, and do you think that it's a good trade for Buffalo? Because I've seen people saying that it's an overpay online and things like that, and I've also seen other people excited for Logan Stanley. So what side of the fence are you on here?
I think it's making use of the assets you've got as best you can. Bryson's another guy that's a good player, but he kind of found his way out of the lineup here. Had a rough couple of games before the Olympic break, and Zach Metsa was out playing him, even with the righty non-balance there on that third pair. It became apparent, and Metsa's a little older than Bryson too. Metsa's 27. One of the older guys coming out of college, played a full time at college, and then goes pro, and he's already a veteran aged adult at that point. So, but I think with Bryson, he's such a smart player. He's a good passer. He's quick on his skates. He's not big, obviously, but he's a good player. And I think it's how that changes things on the blue line in Winnipeg is way more interesting, because I think we're talking about how that changes things with Heinola there, one of their old first-round picks, and how he's fought to try to get into the lineup and stick there. Bryson comes in, and now maybe it kind of takes away the opportunity he's had. I don't know, but it's changing the depth on the defense, because you're basically swapping Stanley for Bryson, and then you're adding Schenn, and then maybe you're kind of taking that responsibility away from Metsa on the defense. And Rosén, listen, the points stand out, and you're thinking well, the Sabres should have had him in the lineup. And then, again, it boils down to the question: well, who do you take out? Who's the guy you're removing from the lineup to play him, and is he going to have success there? And I think there was enough of a track record with Rosén to know that probably wasn't going to work. And maybe Lindy was just kind of hey man, kid's a good player, but it's just not going to happen here. I get it. Fans are nervous. Sabres fans are very nervous for a very good reason, because this is all new territory. So nobody really has a good feel for how this is going to go. This was another non-playoff year, and this is going to be another year for the lottery, and you make this move, you're probably right to lose your mind about it, because you're what are we doing adding these guys? This is dumb. But you're looking ahead at the playoffs, and the teams that are going to be in there. You've got, you're looking at Montreal, you're looking at Tampa, you're looking at probably Detroit. You've got Carolina in the Metro. You've got the Islanders. You got just dealt with Pittsburgh. These are all hard teams, and they're all going to be pains in the butt when it comes to game time. And you need some guys that are going to be able to kind of weather through the rough and tumble stuff and play hard and kind of hold things down. So these are playoff moves. These are moves to get veterans that know the ropes. And you know what? It's a new feeling. It's been 14 years to be able to prepare for a playoffs, and this is part of it, because I don't think they really want to entrust younger guys. As fun as the younger guys are, and as good as they've been in some cases, I think when it comes to some of these very situational things, I don't think they want to entrust that to guys that just don't have a long resume in the NHL.
Yeah, we've seen other guys get called up as well, right? We've seen, the Helleniuses, the Wahlbergs, other players have been called up over Isak Rosén this season. So it almost felt like he was one of those guys that they could make expendable. You heard the rumors about Devin Levi. I'm not even going to get into that one, but I heard that
I didn't even hear those rumors. You're ahead of me on that one. So.
I think it was David Pagnotta or somebody like that had put that out that the Sabres had been shopping Devin Levi. I'm not going to comment on that because I have no idea. But it just felt like if they were going to move somebody, it was going to be off the Rochester or the prospect pool. And Merca's name got thrown around in that Parayko deal. So it was almost just like they needed to move a prospect, because we've been talking about picks and prospects for how many years in Buffalo, Joe, and at some point you're going to have to move some of those for guys that are a little bit older roster players. And to me, that this type of deal, was that to a T.
Yeah, this was, and honestly, when you're preparing for the playoffs, this is the right moment to do that, especially when, these aren't guys that they don't know what they're about. It's not like you're moving a guy you just drafted a year or two ago, where they're still basically a box of surprises. Like, you have an idea of what they could be, but you don't know what they are yet. Roseanne, you know what he is. Bryson, you already know what he is. He's got enough of an NHL resume, so that's fine. Future draft picks, like, second round picks, tough to give up, but there's been good fortune in trading a second round pick for a guy to use now. I mean, Beck Malenstein was one of those guys. Kevin Adams got crushed for it, right? Maybe rightfully so, considering who Washington took with the pick with Cole Hudson. But are you going to argue with how good Beck Malenstein's been in Buffalo on the fourth line? No way. Dude's been incredible. So, the thing with trades is, you gotta give to get, and if it hurts to give and you feel okay about what you got, then I think you did well for yourself.
Yeah, David Pagnotta at 10:28 a.m. this morning, Joe. Sabres are shopping goalie Devin Levi. So I don't know about all that.
I don't know about shopping a guy who's having his worst pro season. I don't know how good that works out in the end, unless you're totally moving on from him. But I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Any quick thoughts on the other deal that the Sabres made with Sam Carrick coming to Buffalo from the New York Rangers? I know some people were kind of scratching their heads on the return there, given, again, his stats don't jump off on the page either, but, good face-off guy. And the Sabres obviously are lacking in that department, depth at the center ice position that can win key face-offs. What do you think of the Carrick ad, and what do you think of the price?
The price, what was it, a third and a sixth, I think it was?
Yep.
I think that's because he's got term. Like, he's got another year. The cost is not a lot. He's $1 million a year against the cap, so that's not a big deal. But for what he's going to get used for, this team stinks at face-offs. like just straight out, they're not good at draws. I think the team average was pretty well under 50%. Their highest guy was Tyson Kozak at 49.1. I think Tage was right behind him at 49. I think it was Tage. Maybe it was somebody else. I looked these things over last night. Forgive me for not having committed a memory, but but Carrick was at 53.9% with about 400 draws taken. It's so much better than everybody else. Now, granted, you're not going to just throw him out there at the dot every single face-off you've got. Like, that's crazy, but situationally, though, defensive zone draws, maybe an O-zone draw where you need to keep possession, overtimes where you need to, possession is so vital in 3-on-3. Put them out there, win a puck, get off, get somebody else out there. But it's kind of a throwback to the I'm not talking way back in the day when the Sabres traded for Bob Corkum. I forget if that was like 2000, 2001, something like that, maybe 98, I forget. But he was a win-a-draw guy for Buffalo back in the day, and I think Sam Carrick's going to have that role. He plays some PK, defensive forward, and he's a veteran. He's 34 years old, so you know what you're getting, you know what you've got, and you know what to expect. And you're not expecting points, you're not expecting goals, but you're expecting solid defensive play and winning face-offs, most importantly.
And then we had the late deal trickle in there right after the deadline. I think it was even after the presser happened there, Joe, was the Tanner Pearson for a 7th-round pick to the Winnipeg Jets. So the Sabres, I guess, went shopping at the Jets grocery store and said, you know what? They left the store and they came back and said, you know what? We forgot one thing. And it was Tanner Pearson, a guy that has a long time, he's a long-time NHLer, played in some deep playoff runs with the LA Kings in his time and things like that. It's just more so of a depth at this point in his career. But for a 7th-round pick, it doesn't seem like a big investment and just insurance in case injuries do happen. Knock on wood, they don't. But with so many games and such a little time.
Yeah, and it's insurance against Jordan Greenway and/or Justin Danforth not being able to come back maybe this season. Jarmo was a little bit didn't exactly throw cold water on them coming back, but like was very hesitant to say when or if they would be back before the end of the season and if they'd be ready for the playoffs. Greenway's been dealing with stuff since last season, dealing with sports hernia, and like he's just had the worst time getting past some of this stuff. And you feel awful for the guy. Danforth suffered a pretty gnarly lower, leg injury in was it preseason or early in the regular season? I forget at this point, but it's been hard for him to come back from. And you don't want to. Again, this is playoff prep here. You don't want to rest on your laurels and say, "Hey, we got these guys coming back any day now. They're going to be there." And then if you get to the playoffs and suddenly you don't have those guys, and you're like, "Uh-oh, we got to raid Rochester for our playoff help here." Which, hey, maybe that works out okay. But I think when given the choice, if Lindy can have a guy that's played a ton of NHL games and has been through the wars, he's going to take that guy 99.9% of the time over a guy that maybe has only played 8-9 games in like Hellenius's case, or a guy that has 0 games played like Wahlberg or maybe somebody else down there. But yeah, straight up depth. Again, a lot of chicken littling going on online about people being like, "Oh my God, this guy is terrible." Like, listen, if he's playing, then there's some guys that are hurt, and it's going to be a fight anyway. So try not to sweat it. But new opportunity, new invigoration, and a guy who's been through it before. So a guy to lean on with that kind of experience. But again, I think if you ever see him play beyond the fourth line, then things took a bad turn.
And then lastly, Joe, just on the depth chart now, sort of what that looks like. And we know that the 3 goalie system has worked all year long. They've sort of been lucky with it, with one guy sort of out of the lineup at all times this season. They keep the 3 goalies, even though that was something that was rumored. Would they move on from one of them? But what is your outlook on the way the roster looks like now? When you add in Logan Stanley, you add in Luke Schenn, and then you add in a guy like Tanner Pearson to the bottom 6, and they don't really go and make a big splash, as we talked about. Tuck's sort of their right now, inner rental that they already had. So what is your outlook on what the depth chart looks like with the post-trade deadline here?
It's definitely a lot deeper. I think this is a group that is now prepared for the playoffs as best as they can as a team that has about 85% of the guys that haven't been there before almost, which is just crazy to think about that. But it's a group that's got more help down the line, more guys that can step in, more guys that can help you not lose too much of a step if somebody's got to come out for injury or what have you. It's a nice problem to have this many guys around and in the room. This is something that I think Jarmo was very keenly aware of, and I think Lindy was very aware of it. That listen, if we lose a guy or two, and we got to start dipping into the minors for help. It's not going to help out down the line, down the rest of the way in the regular season, and certainly into the playoffs where you're looking at how do you better match up against the likes of the Tampas, the Carolinas, the Montreals, the Detroits, the Boston, whoever it is they end up having to deal with in the postseason. You want to make sure that you're ready to go with guys that can step right in, and you want to make sure you're not running shorthanded. And this group right now is not shorthanded.
No, absolutely not. And got our fan polls up here, Joe. I just want to pull one up because I'm going to ask you the same question. So with the deals, and again, I put this poll out before the Tanner Pearson trade kind of trickled through at the end. But what would you grade the Sabres trade deadline with the moves of Sam Carrick, Logan Stanley, and Luke Schenn? Right now, if it was A, B, C, or D, the fan consensus is a B at 52.4%, and then A and C is tied at 21.4. D is the lowest, which is a good thing at 4.8, but B at 52.4%. Are you sort of in that camp as well, or do you think it's better or worse?
I think a B is fair, to be honest, because you're not looking to blow up a lot of stuff here. Even if they had made the Parayko move, you're not affecting the only way you're affecting the NHL roster is by adding a guy like that. Whereas I think if you make the Thomas offer, you're talking about really shuffling things around in the room, and things. That's when you're kind of playing with fire. But in this case, you're not. You lose a guy like Bryson, and Samuelson talked today about, he was a great vibes guy, which is true. Beloved in the room, which is true. But this group is really tight anyways, and losing him is not something that's going to crush the room. Whereas, if you traded like the Thomas rumor was like Norris and guys like that, if you move a guy like that in this kind of situation, you're like, all right, what are we doing here? Like that's a bit of a mental check down kind of thing. You don't want to upset a really good thing you've got going here, and they didn't do that. They got deeper. They added some veteran presence. You can't say that those guys are going to step into the lineup and be, big factors. Logan Stanley, I think, will step into the lineup and be part of that. Carrick's going to be good in a role. Pearson is depth. Schen's depth. So you help take care of a lot of things without upsetting everything that's made this team good. So that's, it's kind of like helping your team out while not getting in the way. And that's kind of what a GM wants to do at the deadline.
Yeah. Well, final thoughts, Joe. I mean, when you look at it, it's just nice to have the Sabres make 3 deals that are, they're buying, they're adding pieces to the roster. They're trying to make a run here. And you mentioned uncharted waters and uncharted territory for so many years. I guess, where they are in the standings right now, tied with Tampa. I know Tampa has some games in hands and things like that. Sunday's game is going to be massive against the Lightning. I'm sure it's going to be like a playoff atmosphere down there at the rink, but just post trade deadline, what is, I guess, your final thoughts as we look ahead to what's left here in the season, and again, trying to hold on to that playoff position that means so much for a team that is just starving for these big games at this time of year.
It's kind of strange because you look at where they are in the standings and how they're sitting, and like they're what, 5 points ahead of Montreal, who they've been like kind of going back and forth with in the standings, and they're right there with Tampa right now, and you're thinking like, well, geez, just get to the playoffs. And I'm like, this team's in the position to position themselves for the playoffs now. Now you're thinking like, well, let's not just get there. Let's get home ice. Get home ice in the first round. And heck, get home ice for the division, for the divisional round. Like, get there. Play against the wild card team. Play again, everybody's already been like knocking each other's heads around. So whether you're playing somebody in a 2-3 matchup, or if you're the 1 seed in a wild card, or if they're the wild card and playing against a 1 seed, everybody's going through the war right now. Everybody's playing the same kind of, hard in, hard out games where it's, you're just trying to stay ahead of everybody else, which makes all of these games kind of playoff like. But in our minds, whether it's as a fan or even us as media, to be quite honest, you're thinking like, all right, everybody take it easy here, and one day at a time, let's go and see how it goes. This team's a bit further ahead than all of what we're thinking or how we feel like it is right now. They're further ahead than that. But I don't know, all it's going to take is like, if they drop 2 games in a row, people are going to be like, Jesus, here we go. It begins. And, the worries start and the panic and all that stuff. But this team's shown a remarkable ability to keep it one day at a time, one game at a time, and not get ahead of themselves, not get too proud of what they've accomplished or any of that kind of stuff, which is, again, a complete change of how it used to be, where, if they won 2 in a row, they were strutting around and like, yeah, nobody's going to beat us. And then they lose 6-0 the next game. And it's like, oh no, we suck again. It's like that kind of way of treating everything is done. Like, this is it's a team that's had to learn the hard way of how to mature. And I think they've gotten there. Like, they're good. They know they're good, but they know to stay on point. So this is going to be a really interesting, probably a really fun way to close out this season, because I'm convinced this is a playoff team, and this is a team that can win in the playoffs too.
And I guess my final just thought here for you, Joe, is that we didn't see a lot of teams really go all in. Like, we didn't see Carolina make a lot of big moves. Tampa got Corey Perry. Detroit picked up Justin Falk, and the Islanders picked up Braden Shen. But there really wasn't a team that really pushed it all in for a massive name that's been floating out there. So for right now, when you look at the path right now, I think you can say that it's pretty wide open in the East right now, and you can't really say that the Sabres really, don't have a good opportunity here, because it's right in front of them, even for the division, let alone a wild card spot at this point, because none of the teams around them really win in. I know the Falk ad's a nice ad for Detroit, whether you like the return that they had to give up or not, but there's a lot of teams right now that didn't necessarily put themselves much higher in the bar than when they started this trade deadline.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody in the East was doing fine tuning because, to be honest, everybody in the East is really good. So you don't really need to shake things up like mad. The Isles adding Shen is good. I know he's not quite what he was in previous years, but Isles needed more goals, so that's a good get for them. Falk helps Detroit's blue line in a big way because they needed the help very badly. So that's a nice ad for them. But yeah, nobody in the East really needed to go ham. Obviously, Perry has plenty of experience in Tampa, so like that's just like bringing an old friend back. But yeah, the East, I don't know, man. It's been a battle royale all year, so this is just about like calling for help from the back to kind of get out there by the ring to help throw some guys out if you can. But it's probably should be a little bit more worrisome for everybody thinking like they got a shot at the cup to see Colorado go as ham as they did today. They bring back Kadri. They've done a lot of work there to try to re-secure themselves atop the NHL standings.
Yeah, the West and the Central, more specifically, is going to be a gauntlet. One of those top teams is going to be out after round one. So there's Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report. Joe, we really appreciate you coming on to talk with us from down at the rink there at KeyBank Center, giving the analysis. Great job today. Get some rest. I know it was a long trip back from Pittsburgh, and you're one of the best in the business. So we always appreciate you being able to come on with us.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Thanks so much. It was fun talking to you about this because this is an exciting time, man, for the Sabres. This is just the beginning as far as everybody else is concerned. This is just the start of fun times here.
Absolutely. We'll be talking to you, I'm sure, a lot more, and you'll get sick of me by the end of the season. But go get some rest, and great job, and good luck, with everything you got going on too.
Hey, thanks, man. Be good.
Okay. There's Joe Yerdon of Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey being able to join us on the show today, live from KeyBank Center. Always great to chat with Joe, and he has such great insight on the Sabres and the beat of what's going on down there within the locker room and the team. A great morale right now, for Lindy Ruff's crew and what they've now added to that room, and guys like Logan Stanley, Luke Shen, a guy with a lot of pedigree in the league, a lot of character, a lot of leadership. Tanner Pearson won a Stanley Cup with the Los Angeles Kings. So a lot of things that have been added today. Again, not necessarily things that are going to jump off at the page to you statistics wise. They're not the sexiest of additions, I guess you could say, but they're pieces that I think Buffalo needs down the stretch here for these tough games. And in case, things do happen, injury wise, they need to give themselves some insurance there for those types of situations. Connor Timmins, again, should be coming back as well on the defensive side. So you add, him to what they have on the back end already with Stanley and Luke Shen on that bottom pair. Hopefully Kesselring is healthy. So you look at that top four that was pretty much solidified. The bottom pair, I think, improved immensely. And again, they did give up some draft pick capital in doing that as well. But that's the price you pay. And we saw some players that were head scratching go for some big prices this week. So I guess that remains to be seen if it's just a general NHL problem. Let's get to a quick few thoughts from General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen and his press conference that wrapped up just about an hour ago with him speaking with the media, including Joe Yerdon down there at the rink, and his thoughts on the deadline from the Sabres management perspective. Let's hear what he had to say. And as always, that's brought to you by Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road in Niagara since 2012 in honor of the late William Robert Hunter. Here is Jarmo Kekalainen post NHL trade deadline.
Pretty typical trade deadline. We tried to get things done before we get close to the deadline, so that you're not scrambling in the last second. And I think we accomplished most what we wanted to accomplish yesterday, and so today was a fairly quiet day, and we're happy. We have a lot of faith in this group, the way they've been playing, the way they're competing, the way they're having fun. So we wanted to reward the group as well to show them that we have that faith and we want to help them and bring in some players in different areas that we needed, and I think we addressed those needs, and we're a stronger team because of it. Depth is one important thing. The schedule is very dense right now because of the Olympics. We're playing every other day, and the deeper you get into the spring, you know the schedule there. It's every other day. You need depth. Players are going to get banged up, and it's very, very important in my mind to have depth both, especially on D side. That's probably the most crucial position to have depth in, but also on the forward side. And face-offs is an area where we haven't been very good. I think we're on 44%, 45% as a team. We added Sam Carrick, who's a very good face-off man. He's a right-handed shot and can take D-zone face-offs, crucial face-offs, penalty-killing face-offs. And, the one thing that I've noticed that we've had some success is that teams try to test us a little bit. They've been trying to push us around, and I think we added some elements that's not going to happen so easily anymore.
What do you like about the two defensemen that you got?
Size. I'm a big believer that the further you get into the spring, you need that size that protects the front of the net. And Luke Schenn has a Stanley Cup, and he knows what it takes to go through the grind. The further into the spring and summer you can get. Logan Stanley, obviously a huge man, 6'7", and the length, the size, ability to clear the front of the net. I think the further you get into the springtime here, and we're in a battle here now to make it to the postseason. So I think that's really important. We can tighten up the defensive game by being real strong in front of our own net. So I think those are the biggest elements that they bring. We have a lot of skill on our defense, mobility, ability to join the rush, offensive-minded defensemen. So I think we can really use the defensive side of things with big two trees that we got in these trades. I think that that's been on our mind a lot. I guess that was one of the games where it got tested a little bit, and that's to be expected. We've had a lot of success lately, and teams are trying to win any way they can. So you got to respect that and respond, and our guys compete. I think that's the thing that I give this group and coaching staff a lot of credit for, is that I think everybody knows we have a lot of skill, but our guys compete. And they've shown a lot of character throughout the season, and that's part of the growth process too. And I think that's been the greatest part of the success here in the last few months that I've seen, is that we've really shown a lot of character.
How sensitive were you of not disrupting the chemistry? This is a group that's been playing fantastic hockey for a while now, and you want to improve the roster, but maybe also juggling the idea of not something too seismic that would disrupt what has been going so well.
I think that ties up with the faith that we have in the group. We don't want to disrupt something that's going really well. The chemistry, they have fun together, they believe in each other, they trust each other, and you can see that. They're just having the time of their lives, and I have seen some comments from the players, and they're confirming it, and I see them in the locker room and in the cafeteria every day. Winning is fun, but they've also put the work in, and I think they're all realizing that it's paying off. So it's been fun for us too.
What stood out about specifically maybe these last 5 games after the break? You you lost a couple before the break, 3-week layoff. I mean, you kind of not sure what might transpire, but I mean, you guys haven't missed a beat. Just what stood out about these this last week or so here?
I think I'd stretch it even further. I think that's been one good thing, that if we've had a little bit of a tough game or maybe a couple, we bounce back every time, and that's a testament to the character of the group as well, and consistency. That's a big part of success, and we've had that now. If we've had a little setback, we bounce right back and get on another roll, and it's a quality that all the good teams have.
There was Jarmo Kekalainen, post-trade deadline Sabres general manager, speaking with the media just a little bit earlier today, following the two moves that they've made, bringing in Logan Stanley, Luke Schenn on the back end, and Tanner Pearson as well. A couple of notes that I took from it were we accomplished most of what we wanted to do. We have a lot of faith in this group and wanted to reward them with adding instead of subtracting. Also, we needed depth, adding Carrick for faceoffs. He's a right shot. Those were important things for Jarmo Kekalainen to be able to add to the group. And then said we added elements that we were not going to be pushed around with the additions of Luke Schenn, Logan Stanley, as he called them, two trees on the back end there, and really, wanting to bulk up that defensive core. If they would have added a guy like Colton Parayko, he's 6'6", so they had Logan Stanley 6'7", Luke Schenn 6'2", 6'3" ish. Guys that play mean games, when you go into the playoffs and things like that. Again, not the fastest of players, but they're not going to be playing, big time minutes for this team. But going forward, Schen's going to be more of an in and out of the lineup type of guy. Stanley, bottom pair defenseman. So, his mobility again maybe is something that you could argue is somewhat of a concern. But if you lower those minutes and expectations for him, I think he can fit in nicely there with the Sabres having so many other mobile defensemen. As Joe mentioned, with the Matthias Samuelsson having a breakout year, Kesselring's getting healthy. You've already got Power, you've got Byram, you've got Dahlin. So it's already known as one of the better defensive cores in the National Hockey League, but they upgrade sort of the Bryson for Logan Stanley in that sense. So, and again, Connor Timmins is also in that conversation when he does come back in the lineup. Isak Roseyan, we already talked about some of those younger players, the Oslins, the Wahlbergs, the Helleniuses that have sort of passed him on the depth chart that are a bit younger. Some of the other things that I took from it were the further you get into the spring, you have to tighten up defensively and depth for injuries, need defensive-minded defenders, sort of what I just talked about there, guys that have a lot of speed and mobility and play an offensive game, but a couple of guys that really key in on the defensive side of the game, and Stanley and Luke Schenn. He said they've shown a lot of character, didn't want to disrupt the chemistry of the room. We bounce back every time lately, and I get goosebumps in the position. The passion is there, talking about the fan base near the end of the presser that I didn't get there, but he talked about just the atmosphere that has been brought at KeyBank Center, and the fans really getting behind this team with what's gone on since December 9th with that best winning percentage in the National Hockey League. So he talked about just the atmosphere and the team feeding off of that. But a lot of good thoughts there from General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen, just in general about those ads, and again, these ads aren't going to jump off on the paper to anybody with their statistics. But again, when you look at what the Sabres were looking to get out of this trade deadline, you can look at it. They got their rental and Alex Tuck on the forward side. They keep him on the roster, keep that cohesion within that room. And then they go out and they get a Sam Carrick for a 3rd round pick, a guy that really shores up that bottom six, can win some faceoffs. With the Sabres being, a lackluster faceoff team right now, he can really add a lot there in those key draws and key situations for depth. And then Stanley and Luke Schenn that we talked about a lot there with Joe, just going to hopefully add that final piece to the puzzle that the Sabres needed on the defensive side of the game, the penalty killing and those tough minutes and things like that. When you want to give guys like Dahlin, Byram, Power a little bit of a break there. So we're gonna go to our fan polls now and just quickly discuss those. As always, brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work in the Niagara region since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. We already went over one with Joe earlier on in the show, so that was this one here. That was what grade would you give the Sabres trade deadline, A, B, C, or D? Right now, B is leading at 52.4%. A and C were tied at 21.4% and D at 4.8% for that poll. We're going to get to our second poll here. And I think this one was from a couple of days ago. And it was the thoughts on Colton Parayko nixing the deal to the Buffalo Sabres, invoking his no-move clause. A little disappointed won this poll at 37.5%. Second place was fine with staying put at as I mentioned, 25% there. Third place was happy, go make a big move at 21.9%, and extremely disappointed was last at 15.6%. So again, I think the Sabres, were a little bit disappointed as this poll said there, but they went out and made a swing for some other assets as well, which was nice to see. Fine with staying put and go out and make a big move. Again, Stanley and Luke Schenn's not necessarily the biggest move in the world, But when you think about it, that was sort of what they had targeted there and what they were looking at. So they take the negative of missing out on the Parayko trade, and they go out and get a Logan Stanley and a Luke Schenn. So again, not necessarily the highest of profile exchanges in that sense, but they give up less. They keep Radim Mirka, they keep a first round pick, and they move on from there. Stanley's, he's still got some control there, and he's only 27 years old. And our final poll today was your thoughts on the Sabres trade deadline. In that trade with the Winnipeg Jets, the first one, the Tanner Pearson one, came out after we started recording, but the Isak Rosé and Jacob Bryson, a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick for Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn. The options were love it, great deal, somewhat pleased, don't like nor hate it, or strongly dislike. First place was somewhat pleased at 43.9%. Second place was 29.3%. Third place was love it, great deal. And last place was strongly dislike it. This was one of our most popular polls as of late. So we really appreciate you guys getting in on this one. A lot of opinions on this one. And it seems like you were somewhat pleased with the acquisition of Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn, being able to add that veteran presence on the back end, that leadership. And again, second place there, don't like nor hate it. So that's a little bit in the middle there of what you guys thought of the Sabres, two deals here at the trade deadline. Quickly pull up what they've moved in and moved out. This is going to be a tweet. I just need to pull it up here. Give me 1 second. And again, this is from Chad D. Dominicus, who shout out to him. He was the one that broke that big trade initially. So congrats to Chad on that one. Was out, go a 2026 third, a 2026 sixth, a 2027 second, Isak Rosén and Jacob Bryson. In come Logan Stanley, Luke Schenn, and Sam Carrick. So those were the moves that the Sabres made last night. And Tanner Pearson, you can also add to the ins list and out a 7th round pick. So they add in 4 players on the day, or the week, I guess you could say. And they say goodbye to 1 roster player in Jacob Bryson, a depth defenseman, and a prospect in Isak Rosén, 8 points in his 31 games in the National Hockey League. Just a guy that had to, sort of go through the weeds, stuck in the weeds within the Sabres depth chart and the prospect pool, really passed by some of those other guys. Yes, you can make the argument that they could have traded Rosén for more in a normal package, but I think the Sabres obviously identified Logan Stanley and might have not been the only team in on him, because we know that the teams were looking for defensemen around the league, the Tyler Myers, the Rasmus Ristolainens of the world. So Justin Falks, even Colton Parayko before the trade was nixed. So Logan Stanley, probably had some other suitors as well. So the Sabres go out and get a guy that they really targeted, in a type of player that Jarmo Kekalainen, it seemed like he was just, raving about him in that press conference about how much he loved, size. You can't teach that for those wrestling fans out there. He's, in that case, 7 feet tall, but Logan Stanley 6'7", and you definitely can't teach that for somebody. And I know his highlight tape is going viral already on social media with his hits and his fights and things like that. So Sabres fans, blue collar town, they love that type of stuff. As long as he can play hockey in this century is important as well. So there's the ins and outs there for the Sabres. Again, I'll quickly mention it for our audio listeners. 2026 third, 2026 second. I'm going to assume it's a 2025 7th that goes out the door. Correct me if I'm wrong. A 2027 second, Isak Rosén, Jacob Bryson, and income forward Tanner Pearson, defenseman Logan Stanley, defenseman Luke Schenn, and forward Sam Carrick. 3 of those players coming from the Winnipeg Jets. So there is the recap there of the ins and outs for the Sabres on this trade deadline day. I think that's going to wrap it up for this quick trade deadline reaction episode. Really appreciate everybody being able to join me on this show today, being able to join us on what was a long day when there really wasn't a lot to talk about, and a lot of trades that have gotten broken around the league. But from the Sabres perspective, Joe mentioned it was sort of just a time that the Sabres fans and people around, it was one of those moments where it was a lot of anxiety, because the Sabres have not really been used to this for a long period of time, being able to be buyers at the trade deadline. So again, they didn't really move too much off the roster, and according to Jarmo Kekalainen, they accomplished what they were looking to accomplish coming into this week and this day. So appreciate everybody joining us here on the YouTube version on the live. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, or smash that bell if you enjoyed the coverage here. If you enjoy OHL content, we'll be doing our after-hours segment following Friday Night Face-Off over on our X account at Armchair GM Pod. You can also give our Sabres content a follow at Sabres Semantics. Get in on our fan polls for our segments here on the shows every single week. And you also give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. As always, Sabres Semantics is proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. And there are 3 great Niagara region locations in Niagara Falls, Fawn Hill, and Scott Street in St. Catharines. I will say we do have a couple of promotions coming up with them throughout the store, one including the day after Sabres home wins. You can go into any of the 3 Global Pet Foods locations in the Niagara region, pick yourself up a free dog or cat treat for your furry friend at home. So that promotion is going to be starting this weekend, hopefully when the Sabres get wins over Nashville and Tampa Bay, more specifically, team that's trying to chase down for first place in the Atlantic Division. So until next time, my name is Brandon Caputo. Make sure, again, to like this episode. And if you enjoyed the live content, let me know in the comments section down below as well. So that's going to be it. Another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network and our NHL Trade Deadline recap. Talk to you guys again very soon.